Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Remote Online Notary Network. I am your notary for the evening. I'm Catherine Cabrera. I'm in Texas, and I have been off for a few months. I just had a baby. He turned 7 weeks old yesterday. So I am so happy to be back. I have been putting together this troubleshooting video for months. Every time there has been any kind of issue, I have been adding it to the slideshow and thinking about all the workarounds and how to share it and how to make it not so platform specific, because these troubleshooting tips should cover most platforms that you could imagine. Now, in the meantime, something that all remote online notaries have in common is a war story. We all have a notarization that has taken an extremely ridiculous amount of time, with gears turning, problems erupting left and right, that we just hammered and hammered until we could fix it and get the online notarization done. So if you have a horror story, please put it in the comments below. We want to hear the horror story and we want to hear the resolution as well. So please post how to fix things. Make this a resource so that other notaries can find what they might need to know, so that we don't have the same folks doing the same mistakes again and again and again. Let's try to learn from each other's mistakes here, and let's get going. Online notarization is all about problem solving. You can solve problems from the beginning and in the middle and sometimes at the end, but not usually, because the document is locked at the very, very end. So the preliminary setup is really important. If you want to have an idea of how I do my preliminary setup, you can look at my personal website. It's texasonlinenotary.com. And if you look at where the scheduling is, I have a complete, almost a book, telling the signers what to expect, what to do, what to avoid. And you can go ahead and copy and paste and change it up and make it your own. You'll also be wanting to send email invitations. You should make them very clear with instructions. And we're going to talk today about ID verification. ID verification is a huge hang-up for signers coast to coast and beyond. Security settings, video issues, sound issues, not hearing each other. That can create some big problems during an online notarization. Even viewing the documents and e-signing issues, just applying the signature. So we'll look at that today too. So preliminary setup, 2 different approaches. You'll see I've got on the left that you've won the business. This is your independent client. You didn't receive this from a platform anywhere. So the instant that your client books, send out an email to them telling them exactly how to prepare. You'll avoid a lot of problems this way. Don't let them go rogue. Give them really clear instructions. You're going to tell them what browser to use. It's important. Most platforms were created for Google Chrome. Why? Because it's secure and it's really, really common. You're also going to let them know about device restrictions. I've had more luck with folks on iPhones than I've had luck with people on Androids. And I have not had good luck at all with people on iPads. So I want to go ahead and bring up the conversation of what device will you be using, so that we can hedge off anything. If they've got multiple devices, I'm going to tell them which one's the best one to use for the online notarization. Then we're going to go over the identification guidelines. So for example, if your state will not allow you to accept a passport unless it's for a real estate document, find out what kind of document the person has. If it's for real estate, okay, the passport's all right. But in every other case, it might be that they need to produce a driver's license. Go ahead and let them know what identification they're going to need to be able to get online with you to get a legal online notarization completed. And also let them know how early they can work ahead. If you're sending out the email invitation link and your identity verification on your platform will last 24 hours, but you've sent out the invitation 32 hours before, if they jump right in and try to get everything prepared and ready, their identity verification is going to expire before the session even begins. And it doesn't sound like it's that big a deal because they can go through the identity verification again. But what if they don't pass? There is no guarantee that everybody passes ID verification, even if they've already passed it once on the second or third go round. Now, alternatively, if the business is directed to you, so if you're on Notarize or OneNotary or something and they are sending you business directly from the platform, The platform has already guided the signers through this part. You are not going to have to do any of this preliminary setup. In the business directed to you, you're just waiting for ready, prepared people who want to get their notarized document done. All right, now we're sending out invitations. In the scenario where you have won the business, you're going to send out reminders from your own email. You're going to tell the signers what they are looking for. And by that, I mean, is it an email that will probably land in a junk folder? So if they're going to receive something from noreply@platform.com, tell them to be looking for that email. People will overlook it if they don't know what they should be expecting to receive. A lot of folks that I do online notarizations for say, you didn't call me. It's not about a phone call. I need to get them online. I need to get them moving through that identity verification and having their webcam and their sound working. We don't prep our online notarizations with phone call alerts. It's not how the flow should go. Also, you'll want to use an app or a calendar to handle that part for you. So for example, on my personal website on texasonlinenotary.com, when people book, an instant email goes to them. That's what you want. You want to make it as streamlined as possible. You want them to get their instructions right away, and you want to make sure that you don't have to manually touch things all the time. This is how appointments get missed and how poor communication happens and people fail identity verification and things like that. Now, alternatively, when the business is directed to you and your platform is sending you business, all of this has been taken care of. You're not going to be touching any of this. You'll just be meeting people online. Troubleshooting KBA ID verification is the most frustrating part of any online notarization with a problem, I guarantee. In the scenario where you have won the business, the signers are going to go through knowledge-based authentication. We call it KBA for short. All signers on your session need to pass the KBA. If you have 3 people on one session, the chances that one of them will fail the KBA are pretty good. Try to keep your sessions small. Monster sessions of 3, 4, 5 people are almost inviting a problem. So if that means you need to split one session with 2 people, one session with 1 person, do it. Save yourself the headache. You'll also want to make sure that all of your signers have a social security number. In most cases, some states have some remote ink notarization things that are done. And I think some states also allow for credible witnesses so that you can bypass the social security number need. Now, why do we need a social security number of our signers? Sounds ridiculous. Well, it's because of the KBA. There are only 3 providers of KBA, and all 3 of them require the social security number because the data associated with that number is used to generate 5 questions for the signers. And then the signers need to answer 4 of those 5 questions correctly. If there is not enough data, so for example, if there's a 19-year-old person who wants to get an online notarization completed, but this 19-year-old has never purchased a car, had a credit card, has only lived at one address his or her entire life, there won't be any data for the third-party contract provider who's creating this quiz. There won't be any data for them to create questions. And then you will see that it just automatically fails. If you want to know more about KBA, check out my Unlock the Mystery of KBA video. It's right here on the Remote Online Notary Network YouTube channel. And I'll also link it below. It'll go really in depth on what KBA can and can't do. Now, also LifeLock, or a credit freeze that is preventing any kind of pulling of data associated with the social security number, that will prevent KBA. The signers will need to temporarily disable that so that information can be tapped, and then they can be asked the questions and pass the quiz to get online. Now, in the scenario where the business is directed to you by a platform, by the time you're meeting the signer online, he or she has already passed the KBA. You're going to be reviewing ID. Now, photo ID issues. Photo ID issues can also be a pain. In a scenario where it's your client, Each person will photograph his or her ID with a cell phone camera. Now that ID has to be flat. It has to be absolutely flat on something dark for maximum contrast, just like when you photo a check so that you can't deposit it into your bank account. But it can't be at any angle. It needs to be dead on. So you should be having them hold their phone straight, flat, over the ID flat. It sounds like overkill, but you wouldn't believe how many times the ID comes back kind of crooked and then it fails. So it has to be dead on, no angle. The camera needs to be far enough away, so basically up, to not crop or chop anything off. If it's missing a little tiny corner or an edge, it will fail. You need perfect barcodes and QR codes, which are on the back of licenses. Perfect in the photo, no blurriness. And that's because the third-party contractors that run the ID verification, in this case, this is credential analysis, because the driver's license or the passport or whatever they're using, it is a credential. So this piece of the identity verification is called credential analysis. The barcodes and the QR codes have to be perfect. Why? Because they're actually running those items to see if they are valid. So this, to me, it's tough because you got to get your signers to pass. But this is a huge plus for online notarization. If anybody tells you that online notarization isn't secure and people can impersonate other people, no, it's pretty tough because in-person signings, how often does the notary really have the ability to tell if an ID is absolutely authentic? It's not common, even if you're using a blacklight pen or something. But these companies are actually running the QR codes and the barcodes. So you can be pretty confident that the credential is good. Now, you also want to make sure that pop-up blockers are off. Very often, a security code or something will pop up on the platform screen for the borrower to enter before taking the photo of the driver's license or the passport. What do I mean? Well, let's say they pass their KBA quiz, and then on the platform, a pop-up comes up. It says, your security code is 3391. And then the borrower or the signer is getting a text on his or her phone, and they click the link to take photos of the ID, and it asks them for the secure code. Oh, 3391. That way, the system knows that the person getting the text and responding with the text is also the person looking at the computer screen who just passed the quiz. So pop-up blockers cannot be on. Please get the signers to turn them off so that everything functions properly. Now, if none of that worked and there's still issues with the credential analysis, which is pretty common because it's pretty sensitive, there's something else that your signers can do. They can use a different phone. There's nothing that says the wife can't grab the husband's phone, put the phone number in for the text to go to that phone. She still puts her security code in and then uses his phone to take the photo. There are so many phones out there that the systems don't all work perfectly with every single phone to get the picture right. So don't be afraid to get them to just try a different cell phone. Now, people get kind of offended, like, well, my phone is great. It takes great photos. It's not about the quality of the photo, probably. It's just something is not lining up. So let's try to just work through all the options and switch up the phone just to see if it's going to get them through that credential analysis. In most credential analysis attempts, it gives 5 opportunities. So they should be able to take 5 photos of that ID to try to get it to go through. After 5, it's going to fail. All right, let's talk about security. How secure is too secure? There is such a thing as too secure. So banks, the network at a bank or a financial brokerage house is so secure, there is no way the audio video feed will function properly for an online notarization. The signer is likely going to need to hop onto a personal device. Hospitals as well. And the reason is HIPAA. Every medical place is locked down tight. The firewalls here are going to disrupt the audio, the video, and the real-time signing that most online notarization platforms need to function in the system for it to all work. you're going to end up asking your signer to ask a fellow nurse or someone to go to their locker and pull out their personal device. It's on a personal Wi-Fi or 5G system or something to use it to do the online notarization. So don't believe at any point that someone in a bank, on the bank's network, or a hospital is going to be able to do this. They really aren't going to be able to do this. Those systems are too secure. And it's the same thing with government offices. They'll need to use a personal device in most cases. So if you've got a problem where they can't get on, they say the website's down or the video won't work, or something, find out where they are. It can impact the quality of the online notarization. And with the government offices, the network is highly secure once again, and the data that needs to pass back and forth, it won't be able to flow. So do warn your signers that if they're on a secure system, the notarization isn't likely to work. And government, of course, includes everything military. Video issues. These are very common. So no other video can be running on the computer that the person is using to do an online notarization. This goes for the notary and it goes for the signers. So FaceTime, Zoom, WebEx, anything that will take over the camera, it needs to be off. It needs to be shut down. So make sure also that your signers are clicking allow when they enter the session. A lot of people kind of bulldoze through things and just kind of deny, and then they think they're going to be on their session. They need to click allow so that they can get on and that we can all join the session and see and hear each other. In Google settings, which is the 3 tiny dots up in the top right, you'll see it, ... Click on there and then drop down to site settings and then drop down to camera and then choose allow. So if they denied it at first or they're not sure or they have a permanent deny on that to try to block the camera, you can walk them through in the Google settings to get that camera allowed back on. Now, antivirus programs or firewalls can definitely block the camera. They might need to be disabled temporarily. Once I was working on an online notarization for a woman who worked for an antivirus company, and we could not get the session to work. It was incredibly frustrating. We could not figure out what was wrong. Then we figured out that she was on her work laptop that she had brought home. Okay, no antivirus company in the world is not going to have their laptops locked down absolutely like just force fields, okay? So she put aside that work laptop finally, and then she went and grabbed her daughter's Chromebook. We had the notarization finished within 5 minutes from then. So antivirus programs and firewalls can create big issues. Also VPNs, those are virtual protocol networks. Probably they're going to need to be temporarily disabled as well. Just tell your people they can put everything back when this is finished. But online notarization, it's a cooperative thing. We have to be able to hear and see each other and trade data. It's by nature, it is not secure in the sense of computer security. It's secure in terms of the document because it's sealed and it has an audit log. It's sealed with a digital certificate, but it is not a situation where you can have a super lockdown connection and get everything to work properly to create that document together. Now, I've also noticed that Mac, okay, I know there are Mac lovers out there who will never deny Mac. And Mac is awesome. iPhone is awesome. But Macs, they have frequent video issues all the time. And also it's really tough for online notaries to get their digital certificates, the key to work. So use a PC, a tablet, or a phone in instances. Try to avoid that Mac. You'll be happier and so will your signers. All right, let's talk for a minute about audio issues. So no other program can be running the mic. You've got to turn off any kind of competing program that could be grabbing the microphone. Make sure the signers click allow to use audio, just like with the video. And then they're also going to want to make sure that they choose the right mic. A lot of folks don't realize that they have multiple mics. They might have one in the computer, one standing on the desk, and one in a monitor. It can be anywhere. So they need to kind of know the names of their microphones and be able to choose the one that they want to use so that everybody can see and hear. Also, the same thing in Google settings. The three small dots in the top right corner, click them, drop down to site settings, drop down to microphone, choose allow if that microphone's been blocked. Now, antivirus programs or firewalls can also block the mic. They'll need to disable this for their online session. I've never heard of any state that would allow an online notarization to go through where the signer and the notary cannot see and hear each other. The notary is asking questions throughout. The notary is asking Are you able and willing to sign? Do you swear or affirm? There must be audio. Now, with the feedback, you'll get that screeching feedback that's horrible. If you have two signers on different devices next to each other, guaranteed, just wait for it. Go ahead and take your headphones off or turn your sound down if you see two people who are in the same room on different devices, because it's going to split your eardrum. So, two signers on different devices should not be right next to each other. They're going to get horrible feedback. How they can avoid it is to move the devices apart, or one of them turn their sound way, way, way down. And the best thing is if they have headphones. If each one has their own headphones, you're not going to have this problem. Even if one of them has headphones, you're not going to have this problem. And then as a last resort, call them on the phone, put it on speaker, hold it to your mic so you can see and hear each other. It's all on video, and they've gone through all of the identity stuff. So you can do that, but it's a last resort option. Troubleshooting with documents. You want clean PDF docs. Try to avoid images of documents. They're never perfectly aligned. They don't print well if they're going to print them after the session. Really try to get those clean PDF docs from your signers. Now, you'll practice zooming out on your platform. It's going to have some options for you to zoom in and out on the documents. Sometimes someone uploads something absolutely gigantic, especially if they've taken a photo with an iPhone. That's a huge image. And if the document is really big, you're going to need to be able to dial up your font size after you zoom out on the doc, because it's kind of moving together. So make sure that you know how to change your font size, practice on your platforms and everything so that you can handle this if it comes at you, and try to get the clean PDF to avoid any kinds of these image sizing issues. It'll help a lot. Now, I don't know of any platform that has any kind of cooperation with Adobe. And why am I talking about that? Because you can password protect documents in Adobe, and a lot of places do. A lot of legal lawyers' offices do it. A lot of title companies do it. And then they say, oh, well, just here's the password so you can open it whenever you are going to do your session. Well, because Adobe is not with these online platforms, the platforms cannot read it to unlock it. I don't know if that makes sense, but anyway, it can't work. Don't let anybody put password protection on your documents. The documents will never load, and you will be looking at blank paper, blank white sheets on your screen, and you won't be able to notarize a thing. So do not accept password protected documents. It's not going to work on your online session. You need clean PDFs that don't have anything funny going on them, and then you'll be able to open them in your session and work on them together with your signers. Sometimes you'll have folks with e-signing issues. If they don't see the actual prompt on the screen to sign, you want to find out what browser they're using, and then get them into Google Chrome if they're in anything but Chrome. Another thing that affects it is the internet speed. So if somebody is in the middle of the jungle in Costa Rica, they may not see the actual e-signature pop up on their screen, and it's because it's taking the data forever to get across the ocean. It's really annoying. But just waiting can be really effective. Give it a minute, and then they should be able to see the prompt and be able to sign. They also might not see the prompt image. Ask the signer to just tap in the area over the signature line if they're saying that they don't see anything that says sign here. Sometimes it's just something with the screen, and if they just tap in the area, it will give them the signing field to be able to go ahead and move forward with that. Another thing that happens a lot in online notarization is that the folks have already signed the documents. It's really uncommon. Not every state has all of the same rules, but it's really uncommon for any state to say that the person can sign the documents before the online session. Most that I've researched say that it needs to be an e-signature. Every signature during the session needs to be an e-signature done during the session. So as a notary, if your platform has a tool where you can white out where they've already signed with a pen and then scan the document, go ahead and white out that area and then assign them the e-signature task to do with you in the screen. Now, if your platform doesn't have a way where you can white out, you're going to just want to really trust that you're communicating with your people and you collect the documents beforehand. If you don't have a whiteout tool in your platform, collect the documents from the signers beforehand and go ahead and check them and make sure that they didn't sign anything, and then you upload the docs. Some platforms only allow the signers to upload docs. Some platforms only allow the notary to upload the docs. Some allow them each one to do it. Now then, after they e-sign, they might need to click apply, or they might need to click create, or they might need to click finish. But a lot of folks will sign and then not realize they have to do anything else. So we've been through the negative things. Let's look at the positive conditions, what you want your online notarizations to look like as often as possible. You want the notary and the signer to have great internet. Broadband is ideal, but you want fast internet. You don't want delays. Delays cause issues. Large computer monitors. I've had issues where folks told me, the system won't let me proceed. It's not giving me any options. I don't know what to do. And what was wrong was that the computer monitor was kind of small. And so they needed to scroll down, and then they would see a blue next button in the bottom right, so they could click next and move on. But just because the monitor was small, they didn't see it. They didn't know. Now, you also want prepared and fully focused signers who read instructions. You want clean photo ID cards in excellent condition. Headsets for everyone. You want social security numbers more than 2 years old so that there's some data attached to them and your folks have a possibility of passing the identity verification steps. You want all pop-up blockers off, and you want Google Chrome to be used as the browser. You want a computer or a laptop instead of a phone. It's easier to manipulate and see everything on a computer or a laptop. You want clean PDF document uploads, and you don't want people to share devices unless you're on a platform that requires that multiple signers be on one device. But in most cases, you don't want folks to share devices. You want them to have their own so that they can fully see everything that's going on and they can manipulate their signatures very easily. When you run into roadblocks or issues, technology struggles, it's important to know when and how to ask for help. The best thing you can do is email your platform's support team and include lots of detail. These support emails are staffed by folks who have seen every kind of issue that has ever existed on the platforms. You want to get your question to them and their reply back as quickly as possible. They need to know as much as they can to help you solve the problem quickly. So tell the support team in the email the types of the devices the signers are using. If one of them's on a Chromebook and one of them's on an iPhone, just tell them. Send a screenshot of the problem if it's possible. If it's not possible to send a screenshot, find out if the people can take a photo with their phone of what they're seeing that's got an issue and send it to you so that you can send it on to support. Find out the type of ID they're using if there is an ID credential analysis problem. If somebody says they're using a military ID, they're really not supposed to take photos and make copies of military IDs. If they are trying to use a social security card, well, it's not a photo ID. It's not going to go through. You might discover a problem that you didn't know was a problem yet when you're trying to help figure out what to tell support. Now, also tell support the type of phone the ID photos are being taken on. There may be something that they can tell them, like open it in Mozilla Firefox instead to take the photo ID pictures. We've seen that work on this phone model. This is why you want to give them as much information as you can. You just don't know what kind of quirky thing is going on that they can help you solve. Tell them the browser being used. This is when you find out somebody's using Bing and you tell them that they need to hop onto Chrome and then everything works. And then troubleshooting strategies that you've already attempted. So tell them what you've already done. Tell them what did not work so that they don't feed you back what you just did and it didn't work. That will really help you get great answers from support, and they'll respect you and they will want to help you. And they will reply faster with better information for you so you can get your session going. An online notarization experience definitely matters. There is a huge learning curve in online notarization. The best remote online notaries are not tech support, they're problem solvers. So if you can identify the issue, if you can do a little research, If you can be persistent and if you practice a lot, you will be a great remote online notary. Good luck. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time.